come back and join us for the last session today. I know it was a very long day, but this is what we actually are waiting for as a perfect finish. I know, but it's like, we are very late, so. It's fine. I will slowly introduce everyone to the stage, and I believe then the rest of the colleagues will appear. Yes, so dear guests, welcome back for the final panel discussion. Discussion will be moderated by urbanist and managing director at RIXARCH, Viestur Celmiņš. And we will have 6 panel members, and I will invite you, everyone, one by one on the stage. So the first one will be Ilze Kukute, a former state secretary at the Ministry of Regional Development and Local Government Affairs and former head of the large corporate client department at Swedbank. I will stop at this because there is a lot. Yeah. So the second one, I would invite Matt Quayle, head of strategic projects, Homes England, master plan advisor, architect, educator, please. Then one of our keynote speakers, Linette Horup-Schultz. You already know her, Transformative Partnership Fellows. Next one would be Liene Adumane-Vavere, Rume architect, please. Elīna Kreice, architect, head of design, Bonava, Latvia. Please. And the final one, Gunārs Ruskuls, head of strategic management board, Riga City Development Planning Department. So we will have time until 6, and now the floor is yours, Viestur.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good to see you on a quite competition outside. Sunny Wednesday afternoon before Easter holidays. So we have to compete with that on a Friday afternoon. Everyone's quite tired after a fantastic day, what I hear. So we have 40 minutes of the panel. We have 3 housekeeping rules. First of them is that we will ask the panelists to be as short as possible, since we have quite a few experts here on the panel. Second of all, I'm going to ask all of you to contribute. If you think the question is interesting and you have something to say, please chip in. This is a fairly horizontal, fair format. And last but not least, the audience. We have excellent and great brains in the audience, so please feel free to chip in a question. I'll be asking questions about 3 to 4 times in the next 14 minutes, so if you have a question, please raise your hand. Zane or somebody else will give you a microphone so we can all hear you, the question you might have. Right, so we're going to have 3 components to the conversation. First, we're going to start out with the role of master plan. We're going to move on to renovation. And the role of renovation, since not all housing is going to be built from scratch. We're going to move to new builds. Last but not least, we'll be asking what are the takeaways. And obviously, feel free to give the takeaways for private sector. So by that I mean the developers and architects, and public sector. So what you should be doing in public sector to make sure that housing becomes less of a crisis than it is right now. And I would say it is a crisis not just for the young or New Europe, where we find ourselves today in Riga and the Baltics, but also old Europe, or perhaps even more. I was in Copenhagen last week, and Danes, who usually calm and collected, said the housing is an issue, a national issue, and becomes a pretty heated debate for the elections that we just had a week ago. Right, so Matt, we're going to start out with you. Obviously, the master plan, in the age of AI, in the age of speed, an age of where people are getting quite impatient, and housing crisis is looming. How do we situate the role of master plan, which sometimes spans 15 or 10 years or even 20 years? What is the role of master plan to organize land and space and time and resources across the public and private sector? No pressure for that kind of question, obviously.
I was going to say, how many hours do I have to answer that question? In terms of a master plan process, I was reflecting on the discussions that we've all had today, and also discussions we had at a workshop here yesterday, which was the Urban Aid workshop organized by Helena here, which was really useful. And through yesterday and today, we've had a lot of discussions about different kinds of development and different components of a master plan, if you like. from new settlements in Seda or regeneration initiatives within the town, to adaptive reuse, and I'm thinking about my role here back in the UK as well in terms of all of these kinds of developments. And the role of the master plan, depending upon the scale of it and the timescales involved, really involves finding the right place for all of those components. There's a space for all of these things, whether it's the build-to-rent high-rise development that Michael was talking about earlier, whether it's garden suburb enhancements in Seda, whether it's new regeneration brownfield developments in Kipsala, or smaller scale sites within the old town. The question is, how do you collectively determine what goes where, what's in the right place? And without zoom, because there's a place for everything. There isn't an answer to a master plan. And I think a couple of things that came out of the discussions, if you zoom out from that process, that really struck me out of today and yesterday's discussions were one that Jonas mentioned earlier, actually, which was about the imperative role of spatial planning. So zooming out and thinking that within this mosaic of developments, whatever the size of the scale of the master plan is, there's a place for everything. What are the spatial frameworks that connect them in terms of movement, in terms of communications with existing residents and businesses, in terms of land use strategies, in terms of green and blue infrastructure, and the importance of having that framework to set each component within. And the second zoom out that I had was from yesterday's Urban Aid workshops, which was about communication between everybody involved and the importance of finding new ways or better ways of doing that. Now, this might be my experience from the UK, where my role is very much to talk to developers, to talk to authorities, to represent the government for funding, to look at ways of engaging with local planning authorities, small SMEs, small and medium-sized developers, getting everybody involved and finding a way of communicating from which you're all on the same side, you're learning from each other's experience, and any sort of sense of being on different sides of an equation in the planning and master planning process is removed entirely. And I thought some of the discussions at the workshop yesterday were really positive and creative towards that. So within the detail of the mosaic of all of these things being relevant, and discussions around density and the detail and the role for gentle density and the missing middle, if you like, if you want to use Congress for New Urbanism dialogue, which I think there's a real role for in Riga and what have you. Within the detail of all of those things, I think spatial planning and having that be connective and new forms of communication between all players involved and learning from each other's skills would really help the master planning process.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. We're moving on. One thing that I took away was that communication is key here, since things are moving fast. And again, I think that also, just to keep in mind, there is a sense of immediacy, the sense of urgency with housing crisis, both in younger Europe and older Europe, with people being left out of the market, and what we call the ladder is no longer there. You want to get on the ladder, but there's nothing to get on with it, and because of the costs are so high. So perhaps there's a sense of a degree of complexity. And how would you say, what are the main bottlenecks? And again, looking at developers and private sector partners, what do you think are the main bottlenecks why we are not moving as fast as we would like to in the area of not the new builds, but the renovation sector? And I'm looking at some of our partners here. Who wants to pick up the challenge regarding renovation? Go ahead, please, Ilse.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The bottlenecks for renovation, I would say, is many, but one of importance is the ability to pay for apartment owners, because the housing maintenance costs have increased, and an ability to pay, because the banks will not give a loan to any person, any apartment owner community, if there is no availability to repay the loan. So that should be taken into account. Another bottleneck is also this lack of capacity development of the projects. Financing is not a problem. So the Altum or the commercial banks, so they provide financing for the renovation. But the lack of the project. So let's say to reach this, the targets for the climate targets. So we have to renovate 1,000 houses in a year. For the moment, we have about 70 up to 100.
Which is 10 times as little as possible.
Exactly. And the last bottleneck maybe I can mention is also the high concentration in the construction sector. So actually it's an opportunity, but we don't have like growing the businesses who wants to renovate and work in the direction of the multi-apartment house renovation. And
I would assume that the lack of supply here means that the prices are going up because there are very few people in the industry.
Definitely, that's a competition issue. And also maybe now last one, the volume of savings, existing savings, so that's also a bottleneck. And here I see the potential to work for housing maintenance companies and information, communication, explanation, appraisal. So that all should be done by someone. And the owners are not in that capacity, but the housing maintenance companies could help, or the private business.
Excellent. Ilse, just for a half minute, let's stay here. So if you think there's deficit of some sort to manage to oversee and sort of push this conversation, who do you think should this be doing? Is that state? Is that municipality? Is that housing companies? Is that private initiatives or cooperatives or just, active citizens? I don't think we could put that kind of load on active citizens. I think that's not going to work.
That's not gonna work, but the apartment owners are becoming more active, and that's good news. There is definitely the potential for business development, for project managers, for also financial appraisal, also for construction, as I mentioned, also for housing maintenance, because the competition also only could give us, these good prices or not growing housing maintenance prices for the owners.
Excellent. Anybody in the audience would like to comment on renovation and the speed and the bottlenecks there? All right, there's no takers of that. Okay. Oh, excellent. Elina?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, what I heard you were talking about, maybe some solutions that are made for many buildings, because we know there are so many the same buildings, same building types, and maybe if there are some solutions that already are made before that and calculated, and there are how to make them, how they cost and how to manage to implement them, maybe that could help also. Of course, financing part as well is very tricky, and people who live in one building, especially for decades, it's very hard to agree in between them. It's also quite hard to get agreement, and legislation also not easy there. So
Excellent.
It also
Please.
could be.
Go ahead, Gunters.
Yes, I only want to emphasize that we are dealing with a monitoring every year, and we are dealing with a survey of citizens, and restorated house in city center or near the city center is most demanding housing type. 66% of Rigans says that this is most desirable housing type that are willing to live it. Yes, therefore demand is, but it's maybe not easy to deal with this project and with the price, because most expensive rental price as well, even higher than a new project in city center.
Well, but I mean, the good news is that this is a demanded commodity. People want to live there. It's a desired commodity. The question is, how do we get speed in place, perhaps by the state or the housing corporations? Ilse, any comment on that before we move on?
Yeah, example, I think the Lithuania has decided on the model. They have taken away from the owners all this procurement, construction, so there is like state doing, agency doing all the stuff, project management.
Is it working for them?
Actually, yes, because then the owners know they have to decide, they have to repay, but they don't need, to be lawyers, procurement specialists, and construction the specialists, and that's maybe a model or discussion we have to look at this example from Lithuania and for the future to decide what would be the easiest way. Actually, for complex renovation, that's definitely a good example to look at. And maybe also to mention that we focus now houses to do only complex renovation. But if we look at this EU renovation strategy, so that there is also possibility to go step-by-step renovation. So, and that there we have to have instruments. And at the moment, we don't have really like financial instruments for this step-by-step renovation.
Okay, excellent. Line?
Yeah, I just want to comment more on the partnership and the sharing of knowledge in the industry. And I think a lot of what we're discussing here we already know. We just doesn't have sort of the structure around it or the network so that we can share the knowledge that we already have, both in terms of how to accelerate the renovation part, but also in new build. And I think it comes from a more linear way of working in the industry, where we sort of get an idea and then we ask an architect how to do it, and then we ask a contractor and so on. But I think the question is, can we work differently together in the future, where we agree or align from the beginning on what is it that we want to achieve, what is the question here, so that we together can give the right answer that saves time and money. So I think that that's a part of all what we're discussing here is in creating cross-sectional partnerships, private and public partnerships. And I think we know how to do it, we just sort of forgot it. And Copenhagen is a good example on how the Copenhagen model is not something that just happened. It happened through a very well-organized public, private and cross-sectional cooperation, and treated the investment not as single investments, but like something that created ripple effects. So, and that is a part of also what we have to do in renovation and new build. We have to create these sort of ripple effects. So, and that will sort of inspire the industry of moving faster.
So from what I'm taking that way is smarter way of working and also setting precedents, which sort of level up the conversation and the speed.
A couple of items on that along the same theme in terms of different forms of communication and public and private collaboration, if you like. And this goes back to the workshops and discussions earlier. But UK experience, what we're finding is in terms of agility and speed of delivery, smaller organizations, SMEs we call them, who particularly architect-developer organizations, who are award-winning because that they work within the planning system but often challenge it. So they're not producing developments that have a certain size back garden or all the sort of planning requirements. But for both new build and for regeneration and adaptive reuse, a lot of smaller organizations really know how to do this really well and really quickly, but are often cut out of the process because they work outside of the planning requirements.
Right.
So I think that form of communication, and then with small local government or national government in our case, we're trying to fund intervention to demonstrate how, as case studies,
it's viable.
It can work, so show how it works, fund it, and then that has a knock-on effect upon the wider area. But it requires a different kind of communication to the kind of, in the UK, the slightly clunky, historic planning process where you have to get an outline permission, then a detailed permission. And so there's smaller, more agile developments with creative, innovative architect-developer teams has to be brought into the fold. And we need
Avant-garde.
to learn from them, and then things can happen really quickly and really well in the UK anyway. Now that may be relevant here.
Excellent.
As well.
I saw a sign that when you spoke about smaller firms, Leon grabbed the mic. I think you're ready to go.
Yeah, as an architect, I wanted to mention that we see actually such kind of things in Riga. They're just starting to develop quite like step by step because now like larger developers are taking the market as they are building new attractive homes and we as architects we make them nice as possible and the city dwellers who currently live in some older buildings or not renovated ones, they just want to have this super nice product immediately now and they see that oh this new shiny building is the one that they choose as the first option. But as you mentioned, yes, the possibility, the option that some smaller renovations could be done, and they are shown as some examples that this kind of living is also possible. I think it's a way how to show citizens that you can choose also this option, and it's also attractive, and you can have new networks and also public space, which is quality public space, and it's in the city center sometimes because the new developments, for example, now usually happen somewhere outskirts of Riga center, and that's also a thing that there are some things that can be done.
Excellent, and we want the middle. We want the downtown to be active. We want to be attractive and have destinations, right? So shifting gears here, Lena, let's end with you. New builds. There's always going to be a share of new housing in the market, and in Riga, in Latvia, that's a big issue. We have historical downtown, which is difficult to have new builds. Would you comment, do you think that, can you identify deficits or obstacles that sort of prevent new builds happening at the faster speed, and obviously perhaps raising the prices a little down and making them affordable? Is that too much to ask?
Well, I'm an architect, so I work in when already someone has taken the decision to build something somewhere. What I see in my practice is that sometimes these developments happen, as I mentioned before, somewhere not in the best locations of the city because it's cheaper to buy those land plots and to build there. And thus, that's also some kind of way how to lower the prices for the apartments, and so the residents move there. What I don't like in all this, what is happening now, is that the center is emptying. The
Right.
people are moving outside of the center, and I think that's. It's only beginning. It's like the beginning of this process, but it should be somehow. Reversed. We have to move back to the center and back to the transportation, these lines, so that we are using the existing infrastructure, and that's quite important. I think the city should have their role in this part. So it's not only about the buildings. It's like overall densifying the city with new builds and also the existing like renovations. But it has to be master planned somehow so that we use the existing infrastructure as well.
Excellent. Do we have a question from the audience? I think we're going good, but the going is good, I think, here, but any questions from the audience? Oh, we have a question. All right, a short question and a short answer, because we don't have much time left.
Hello, everyone. I saw there's this thing, multi-story car parking in the UK. Can you, Matt, comment on that a little bit more?
Sorry.
Like feedback from citizens.
Very good thing, I think.
Yes, the use of multi-story car parks in a more multi-story car parks in the UK have a really bad rap because a lot of them were built in the sort of 50s, 60s, 70s and are not that pleasant. More modern interpretations as mobility hubs are becoming more commonplace, both in major city centre locations. There's a big new one, which you can look up in Ancoats in Manchester, the Ancoats Mobility Hub, which has ground floor uses including cycle storage, information, all things to do with smart travel, and then decked parking above that can have, public parks or what have you on the roof and green walls, and they can have, and they can be really positive things. On a smaller scale, for residential developments, we were recently looking at the economics of it within a redevelopment of an old RAF airfield base, actually, as housing, and making the economics stack up for volume house builders, regular house builders, or developers of smaller scale regeneration sites can be very difficult because of the price of it. So unless you're in a city centre location, that can be difficult. But it is something that's growing and it's becoming quite positive, yeah.
Yeah, there's this one project, it's going on. I mean, can you comment on that a little bit?
Which project? Do we all know what we talk about here?
Multi-story car park, I do not remember, but it's like going now for like few months, 8 or 9 in UK. It's the first...
Is it Ancoats? Is it in Manchester?
I think so, yes.
Well, the Ancoats Mobility Hub, which is, a multi-story car park, if that's the one you're thinking of. There are a few examples.
Well, it's the first one in UK, I guess.
Yeah, okay, well, it must be Ancoats then. Is within a broader regeneration area, where actually the students here at Manchester School of at RIXARCH have been working with our students at Manchester School of Architecture in that area, where there is a broader regeneration initiative, which includes the redevelopment of old mill buildings, as well as the creation of build-to-rent high-rise blocks, as well as new development by groups like Urban Splash. Within that broader regeneration context, there is a mobility hub which serves both some of the residential uses and some of the commercial uses. So it's a really, really positive thing. When you get down to a smaller scale to develop that kind of facility for smaller residential developments or regeneration initiatives, it becomes unviable.
Excellent. Moving on, the new builds. Lena, you had the points. Anyone else on the new builds and what is blocking? Perhaps Lena and Elina?
Well, I think when you talk about new builds, it comes with a price, right? Because the CO2 footprint of new builds is quite high. So talking about renovation, is that what we have to do? If you look at a pyramid, we have to do most renovation, and then new build is the least that we should do. But talking about, I don't know Riga, but I can refer to Copenhagen, maybe to most European big cities have the same issue with affordability, if that is what we are touching upon now. Copenhagen, we have a regulation that is when you have development in an area with new build, you have to develop 25% of affordable housing, and that's a way of doing it. 25%. It's annoying when you're a developer, but I mean that is a way of regulating it. But I think when we build new, we have to look at this also for a more holistic perspective. We tend to look at housing as sort of very linear, not very holistic approach. Because when we build for the future, we have to build much more sustainable, but also sustainable for people, which means that we have to build in a cheaper way, where we also address loneliness, where we also address all these issues that come in urban planning. So I think the approach here is also just look at it in a different way, where we have to build affordable for the future, both for the...
And what would be, if you would take one thing from Copenhagen, what is the way how you address affordability crisis? Housing is there, but it's not affordable, it's not accessible. People, unless it's investment by some funds.
Yeah, but it is when we develop new. You can see in Nordhavn, which is a very, very expensive area in Copenhagen, as a developer area, it is in the harbor front. It is good and it's also super bad. But one thing that we achieved, or not me, but what they achieved when they developed Nordhavn, was that 25% of that is affordable housing. Okay. And it is also, which I think is fantastic, on the waterfront. So you don't differ from, if you only can, if you have to live in the affordable housing, it is also in the front. waterfront sites. So it's not just
Instead of being somewhere
hidden
outside the suburbs.
Exactly. So I think this sort of very democratic way of developing in the future, also in terms of spaces, is quite important.
Elina, a challenge for you. What would you do if City of Riga tell you that a quarter of your whole stock goes to affordable housing? You would not be too happy, would you?
We actually focus on that. Like actually,
That's your
even
market.
That's what we do. And what can I say to be there affordable enough to build for many people, not just exclusively for some, but for many. You just have to do it smart. You have to be smart, and you have to think about the planet, of course, sustainability, about and you still can play even though you don't have a big budget for this development project. You still have each plot is different. It's in a different environment, in different form, and you can play with that even though you follow some building system rules or something that you have already decided how you do it before, what you will build, but you don't know, and you can play with that where you go in with this project, with this specific space, where you can play with the territory, with the recreation area, with the relief, or with sustainable rainwater systems. We love to do it because we have this challenge in Riga that there's problem with rainwater, and we can use all this knowledge because we have this in-house design team, and we can we have this learning loop, and we can all the time learn from the mistakes and also keep doing the good stuff what we have learned before. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Gunter, before you go on, comment on Elina's point
about new housing and affordable housing.
Okay, go ahead.
From Riga city perspective, yes, we are dealing with a new program for our affordable housing. It will be free houses, more than 700 flats for new professionals. But it is like conventional way. It is a public-private partnership project. But probably we have to deal with the private sector with your projects and maybe subsidize to buy some floors in different projects for affordable housing to skip this segregation. And other things what I want to say about new housing, in Riga case, it's very important that new housing and new project is support compact city model. Compact city model, because a lot of development, especially about housing, is in peripheral neighborhoods, Jūgla, Dreiliņi, Pļaunieki even, these new projects. It's, of course, it's land use zoning is allowed, but we want new housing in central part or city core, for instance, in the front of Riseba. It's a perfect place for new housing. It is not city center, but it's still city core. And a lot of very nice project now in Torņakalns, and city thinks with our properties that we can put to the market territory, where is Uzvaras Street and railway.
Finally.
It will be probably new flats, approximately 5,000 or 6,000 new flats in central part near the new parks. And this could be very nice, yes. And this compact city model, I think it's very good. And how we can manage this urban sprawl in city territory, it's our responsibility to provide infrastructure.
Right.
Yes, but you know, we have limited resources, and probably in this greenfield, it will be our last priority in new greenfield to provide this infrastructure. It's very expensive, and therefore we can support development in priority areas which in city core or near the city core.
Excellent. We have Lena.
I just wanted to add about this. I think this is a very good idea about the infrastructure, because what I see that in any development, in any city, the areas that we want to develop the most, or the city wants to intensify, the main thing actually is not some kind of, not even some programs for like renovations. I think infrastructure, like having very good street infrastructure which is suitable for pedestrians and which is suitable for living and having children in the streets and not be afraid of too much traffic, that helps a lot also for renovation. And it's not like direct tool, but I think it's even more important than financing, because it's like it helps any development, any city to have this quality in it in area, and so the residents also see that they can have much better than this. So when they see like very good public infrastructure, when they see pedestrians, bikes, and like cafes are opening in these areas, it just works like this.
Excellent. We have 5 minutes because I'll be shut down if I don't close this thing at 6. So we have an agreement here. We want housing to be central and compact. We want to be at least to a degree sustainable and climate friendly, and we want to be affordable. So my last question to you and the audience, and you can take up to a minute here, what do you think should the private sector do to get there? And what should the public sector do to get there? So zoning, laws, incentives, infrastructure. I mean, you come from different backgrounds. So I would start with Ilse at the back. She's been waiting to and then you have another minute to prepare your answer here. So all of us have a chance to discuss. I think we agree what we want. Okay, so some of those things are new. Some of them have been told before. What do you think we could do from the public sector that we get there as soon as possible?
Public national instruments, different funds, financing schemes. Municipality should take care about all inhabitants, not only for the areas where we build new homes. There is a risk of segregation. That's all.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Just a quick comment, which actually goes back to the affordable housing slightly in terms of, yes, compact, centrally located, regeneration mixed between new developments and regeneration.
All the good things.
All the good things. If we want to get the kind of range of players involved in that who can do it really well, from UK experience anyway, this may or may not apply here, those smaller SME developers, the innovative, creative game players, if you like, some of the infrastructural costs, affordable housing costs, cripple them. They can't do it. So that's where the government in the UK has to step in. Larger developers can sometimes carry that kind of cost, but if we want those small, agile, innovative developer architect teams who can create those really good case studies, good precedent examples, they need to be financially supported on affordable housing, on infrastructure, and on the costs beyond the building.
Excellent. Nina?
Yeah, I think I'm going to repeat myself because I'm not sure if we agree on exactly what, because I think that is the question here. What is it actually that we want to achieve when we develop a city? It could be any city, but now it's Riga. But if I have to answer that question that you're asking, I agree with you. I think we have to look very carefully on sort of the network that we create on cooperation, because that is something that could, and I think also learning from Copenhagen, the Copenhagen model, that's just released a book actually on that model. And I think it came also from these different networks of private and public corporations. And I totally agree with you that if you want to move fast, it's not with the big developers. I think then you can test something with less or more agile developers and corporations. And when you test it and know it works, that you can scale it. So I think developing small tests, experience to scale.
Excellent. And then the SMEs no longer SMEs. If they're scaled, they can be bigger and keep the agility.
And it improves the market.
Yeah, it's viable. Excellent. Lena?
Yes, well, I as architect, architects and urban planners, I think the best we can contribute in this is that we just show the best examples in any possible way. We talk to public sector, we talk to citizens, show possibilities, and that's the like that, what I see, that's one of the best ways how to show what can be done, because the possibilities are a lot. There can be renovations, there can be, there should be some implementations in some spots in city. There are a lot of things that can be done to boost the renovation overall.
Elina?
Okay. As I think, yeah, for the developers, I mean, we already work together with the municipality trying to solve the
bureaucracy.
Yes.
That word.
Yeah, that part. Yeah, that word. Can't even say it loud.
You shouldn't say that word. It's bad.
Yeah. So that part, and of course, also work together to show what actually business need to continue to invest in housing in Riga, and yeah, I think it's important to spend time and research in discussion, and like you said, cooperation, communication that gives effort, and me as a designers team lead, like Liana said, do the best what we can as a professionals to show what we can actually achieve with smart design. So yeah.
More.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes,
Art of possible.
because money sometimes doesn't see it, so we have to help them. Yeah.
Excellent. Gunter's finalizing comments here?
And finally is all this stuff is livability of the city. Invest in public space, in greenery. It's our responsibility of the city, but it's not easy now when its political mindset is changed. What we get from United States of America and reflect in our political landscape as well, because they say you are not invest, you are spend public money in public space, but we say no. So this is very, very important aspect. Then we support with the planning tools, for instance, local plans, actually master plans, what we taken from Flemish planning culture, especially we works with neighborhood centers, and we as a city be mediator between developers, architects, heritage officers and citizens. And yes, of course, our responsibility for infrastructure, especially for public transport, and therefore we are dealing with mobility points now in the city, and new development areas, if it's not in the city center, have to be or should be near the new mobility hubs, and the best it is a railway or tram lines. Thanks.
Excellent. So round up, I think that we started out with the need for communication. If we are able to communicate in perhaps more efficient fashion, then we can start to address what do we want from municipality and from our space and from housing, from the public sector, from the private sector, from hopefully the agile SME teams, right? And doing it with that with perhaps a couple of generations ahead of us. We're building not just for 10 years, we're building for 50, 70, perhaps even more years ahead. And we have to absolutely include the parts of society which are not able to pay the full price, and we have to make sure the cities are inclusive in that sense, either through regulation, as you do it in Copenhagen, or through support that comes directly or indirectly from the state or municipality. Excellent. Thank you so much, our panelists, Ilse Kukuta-Matquel, Line, sorry, you get your name right, Line Torp-Schultz, is that correct? Liana Ademan-Vavere, Elin Kreitze, and Gunter Struskos. Round of applause. Thank you so much. I think this rounds up the panel part, and we turn over to the designer. Thank you so much.